Hello and welcome to the Happiness Festival hosted by the Happiness Institute in association with Gowing Life. Today we are honoured to be joined by Dr. Oliver Scott Curry. Oliver is currently a research director for Kind Lab at kindness.org. He is also a research affiliate at the School of Anthropology and Museum Ethnography at the University of Oxford, and a research associate at the Centre of Philosophy of Natural and Social Science at the London School of Economics. I'm also joined by my co-host Raymond, who's just finished his final year of psychology at the University of Oxford. And thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Perfect. Well, if you would like to fire away with your talk.
Okay. Thanks everyone for coming to my talk. As we just heard, my name's Oliver Scott Curry, and I'm research director for kindness.org, which is a charity that educates and inspires people to choose kindness. And today I'd like to talk about why people are kind and why being kind makes you happy. The basic reason why people are kind is that we are social animals who rely on one another to survive and thrive. We've lived together in social groups for 50 million years. And during that time, we've faced and continue to face a range of different opportunities for cooperation, for mutually beneficial social interaction. And as a result, evolution has equipped us with a range of social, cooperative, and altruistic dispositions that realize those opportunities, that make the most of group living and promote cooperation. These dispositions explain why, for example, we love and care for our families, why we form groups and work together on projects of mutual interest, why we trust and trade favors, and why acts of heroism and generosity earn the respect and admiration of our peers. Simply put, other people are our life support system, and it pays to be plugged into that system. Helping others creates supportive social networks and has been crucial to our survival and success as a species. Now, this account of our goodness doesn't predict that everyone will be kind all the time. People vary, and there are saints and sinners, but at each end. But most of us are somewhere in the middle. And the theory predicts that most of us will be kind most of the time, and that's what we see. The theory also predicts that humans will be happy to help other people. It won't just be an onerous burden, but we'll be positively motivated and take pleasure from the pleasure of others, from helping other people. Why is that? Well, from an evolutionary point of view, happiness is a kind of internal psychological reward for doing the right thing, for making progress, for being on the right track to achieving some important evolutionary goal. From this perspective, it's easy to explain why people are happy to eat or have sex. These are important evolutionary goals. But the very same theory predicts that people will be happy to help their family and friends and even strangers under some conditions. For these too are important evolutionary goals for the reasons I've mentioned. But is this theory true? Is it the case that people are happy to help, or is this too good to be true? Well, there's plenty of correlational evidence to suggest that helpful people are happier, but correlations are not enough to establish cause. It could be that helping makes you happy, or it could be that happy people are more helpful, or it could be that some third variable, like being healthy, explains why people are both happy and helpful. In order to get at cause, we need experiments. And luckily, there are plenty of these experiments. Experiments in which, for example, one group of people are assigned to help themselves, and another group are assigned to help others. Or experiments in which one group of people are given money to spend on themselves, and another group are given money to spend on others. At kindness.org, we conducted a meta-analysis of these studies, of which there's been 20 plus independent experiments. And what we found was overall results vary, but taken together, on average, in aggregate, helping does indeed make you happy. The result is modest, a small to medium effect size, but it's comparable to other well-being interventions such as mindfulness or positive thinking or counting your blessings. And to my mind, it's better than those alternatives because you get two for the price of one. Mindfulness might make you feel better, but kindfulness makes you feel better and the person you're helping feel good too. So you double your investment. You get more bang for your buck. Okay, so you're designed to be kind, and being kind makes you happy. But where to start? What to do? What kind acts are going to be right for you? Well, kindness.org can help here too. We have curated hundreds of kind acts, everything from holding doors open for the people behind you, through to donating a kidney and everywhere in between. And we're in the process of testing them to see which are easy, which are hard, which have a big impact, and which do not. And with that data, we can calculate which are the most effective acts of kindness, which have the best ratio of costs to benefits. How do you get the maximum leverage of your kindness to make a difference in the world? For example, we recently had over 100 people rate the cost and benefits of 100 acts of kindness that can be done under quarantine, or rather while social distancing. And we found that the most cost-effective acts included, not surprisingly, washing your hands, but also video calling relatives, making and sharing meals, telling your loved ones how you feel about them, and helping neighbors with groceries. So as you can see, it's sometimes the littlest things that people appreciate the most. But don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. We've uploaded many of these acts to our website, and you can log on, give them a try, and record your experiences. The data from this real-world road testing of acts of kindness will be recorded and analyzed too. And together we can move from random acts of kindness to recommended acts of kindness and really make a difference. To summarize then, you have the capacity for kindness, and being kind makes you happy. So be kind and let us know how you get on. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Oliver, for such an interesting insight as to what yourself and kindness.org does. So I think we'll launch straight into the questions. My first one is, how and why did you become interested in kindness? And I know you also talk about morality a lot as well. How did you start out interested in those?
Well, the first time I realized I was fascinated by these questions, there used to be, there still is a board game called Scruples, which is a bit like Trivial Pursuit, but you're given moral dilemmas. And playing that as a kid, I thought, wow, these are really interesting questions. And it seems pretty important to get the answer right. So that whet my appetite for trying to figure out what was the difference between right and wrong. Is there a difference? Why do people usually choose the right thing? And from there, I went first into philosophy and then psychology and anthropology, just trying to get a better handle on what it means to be good and why people do nice things and why they're cooperative and why they're kind.
Great. Well, I think I'll pass over to Raymond, who has a few more questions for you.
Thanks, Chris. So I was wondering, one of your specialities is in morality, and it's currently a field that's really monopolized by religion or theology. So how does science actually deal with morality?
Well, meteorology, the weather, why there's thunder and lightning, was also once monopolized by religion, but science came along and gave a better explanation of what's going on and why. And it's basically the same things happening with morality. So yes, it's been, the nature of morality and the nature of goodness has been mysterious for a long time, but no longer. There's a consensus view in moral psychology and the behavioral sciences more generally that morality is all about cooperation. Morality is a collection of cooperative rules that help us get along, work together, promote the common good. In game theory, there's different types of cooperation that explain different types of morality, like love, loyalty, reciprocity, bravery, deference, fairness, property rights, a whole suite of different traits. And those theories are now being tested every which way. So people are looking at the genetics of morality and the neural basis of morality and how morality varies around the world. And just as in meteorology, these scientific accounts of morality are leaving previous pre-Darwinian, pre-scientific accounts in the dust.
So on the note of the scientific method and experimentation, some critics also claim that evolutionary psychology, which is a view that's closely linked to anthropology and one that you're involved in, some critics have said that it's not falsifiable and start from sort of a back in the time approach. So in a sense, finding explanations to justify observations without any experimentation or methods to show that could be wrong. What do you think?
Well, if that was the case, they'd have a point. But you only have to open any common or garden evolutionary psychology journal to see that they're chock full of experiments of putting these claims to the test. It's strange. Nobody has a problem with evolution explaining why we have hearts and lungs and livers and all the rest of it. Nor I think it would be a standard view to use evolution to explain, as it were, the back half or the half of our brains, like how the visual system came to be, how it works, how motor control evolved. Nobody has a problem. What else explains those aspects of our psychology but evolution? So for most of the time, the evolutionary approach is completely uncontroversial and works fine. It's only just like this tiny bit at the top here, when it comes to people thinking about other people in social psychology, that it becomes controversial. And I don't think there's any reason for it to be controversial. Taking an evolutionary approach and thinking about how we've lived for millions of years is it's very generative. It creates lots of, it's very interdisciplinary. It makes use of what we know about our ancestral past to make predictions about our psychology, how we think and how we behave. And then we put those predictions to the test in the same way as the rest of psychology.
Yeah, I'd agree. And a lot of the times people actually do have a problem with sort of higher order thinking like morality or kindness. But sort of my favorite example to go to is Cosmides and Tooby's experiment of the social contract test in deductive reasoning. And that's always something that is quite convincing that it is a social contract that leads to people performing better in a Wilson's class selection class.
Yeah, so I mean, their work and in a sense, one aspect of that, one of their motivations, and also Darwin's motivation, was to say, look, this account of evolution is very powerful. It's not just about peppered moths or why giraffes have long necks. It can also explain the descent of man. It can also explain human emotion and cognitions, and even right up to the quotes highest, like the most higher order aspects of our cognition, like morality.
So one thing you've argued about morality is that it's understood as a collection of biological and cultural solutions to the problems of cooperation and conflict recurrent in human social life. So what's your take on the metaphysics of morality? Do you think that moral truths exist?
Well, that's a heavy question. So I think that philosophers have got their knickers in a twist about all of this, and it's not as complicated as they've made out. So the argument is that humans have subjective preferences for objective states of the world, and in this case, the objective state of the world is more cooperation and more cooperative social relationships. So if you take that view, then sure, our moral values, our intuitions are, quote, subjective in the sense that they're in our heads, like our sense of smell and our sense of taste and our color vision is in our heads, but they latch on to real things in the world, like cooperative social relationships or wavelengths of light or particular chemicals. And so there is an objective external reference to what we're interested in all those cases. And it's an empirical question whether a particular behavior promotes cooperation or not. So there is some objective external standard by which we can evaluate our behavior.
Makes sense. So if we go on to more about your project, people tend to want to be kind, but sometimes a lot of the times that people might procrastinate from doing sort of kind acts or doing acts of goodwill. Would you have any idea of how maybe we could nudge certain people to be kinder to others, and in order to be happy themselves and for others to be happy as well?
Yeah, so well, the way we think about it is that most people want to be kind most of the time, but they don't always act on it, and we suspect that's because they lack the incentive, they lack information, and they feel a bit isolated. They don't want to be the only one doing it in case they look silly or get taken advantage of. So what we try to do is overcome those three obstacles. So we provide the incentive in terms of showing what impact even relatively small acts can do. So when you see if you have some inclination to be kind, seeing that the enormous benefits it can have and the ripple effects it can have can increase its value to you. So you might be more motivated to act in a kind way. We also provide, in terms of information, we provide curated lists of good ideas. We've scoured the interwebs to find all the best ideas out there, and we're in the process of sifting them to find, like I said, to find the most cost-effective, the most impactful. So giving people a menu like that, we think, is more likely, it makes it easier for them to sort of find the acts that are right for them. And in terms of overcoming that sense of isolation, one of the things our website does is when you log on and tick off the acts of kindness that you've performed and record your experience, you can see everyone else who's done it too, and you can see their experiences too, and you can compare and contrast, or at the very least see that you're not doing it alone, that there's other people on the same page as you, pulling in the same direction. So we hope that those three things remove some of those obstacles and make it easier for people to choose kindness.
So in a sense, it's sort of like building a hub where people can connect with each other and see that other people are doing acts of kindness, and it's not just you're a fool for doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And so just a final question on my part. I'll hand it back to Chris in a second for your last question that we ask our speakers. I just wanted to touch on the future, or the morality and the surgence of artificial intelligence, which I'm sure has been a massive talking point in the field in the last few years. So in Homo Deus, Harari paints out a not so distant future scenario in which intelligence and algorithms will know us better than we know ourselves, both at an individual and a societal level. Is it then moral and of the best judgment to allow these algorithms to make decisions about our life and also wider moral decisions?
It's another big question. It's not something I've directly worked on, but I think that I have two hunches. So one is that certainly there could certainly be artificial aids to helping us make the right decisions. So we rely on calculators to help us get our sums right when it comes to ordinary mathematics. It's certainly possible that we could rely on more complicated programs, on simulations, on AI to help us get our sums right when it came to what's the right thing to do, or what's the most cooperative move to make. So in principle, I think the answer is yes. We could certainly use those tools to our advantage. And more practically, the argument of morality is cooperation is that you have an obligation to cooperate when you can, and the prediction and it doesn't really matter what the cooperators are made of. So there's many examples of cooperation in nature between different species. So it's not restricted to one particular species. It's cooperate where you can, as it were, with whoever or whatever. Similarly, if intelligent aliens came down to Earth, I'm sure they would cooperate. The game theory suggests that they cooperate in the same ways and value the same types of cooperation, and we would find a lot in common with them. And if in future we have cooperators made of silicon rather than flesh and blood, if they reciprocated and retaliated against injury, we pretty soon come to respect them and treat them as equals and cooperate with them, and hopefully all live happily ever after.
So, the sense that I'm getting is that do you think that morality perhaps itself evolves across generations, and where has the origin of morality come from?
Well, the origin of our morality comes from our social instincts. So they're millions of years old. I don't think it's the case that our morality evolves genetically from one generation to another in sort of historical time. It's more the case that we're talking about very sophisticated software here, or a bit like a graphic equalizer. And this software is designed to be calibrated by the environment it finds itself in. And we'd expect people's moral values to reflect the value of different types of cooperation under different social conditions. So if you live in a society, a very kin-based society, where you're surrounded by relatives or your extended kin network, then it might be that family values loom large relative to fairness and impartiality and other things. If you live in a modern society miles away from your family, where you're basically an atomistic individual bouncing around the subway in London or something, then family values might not be as important as the values of coordination or etiquette or manners, or the value of trade and exchange, for example. So we expect people's moral psychology is complicated software. We expect it to be adjusted to the environment, the social environment they find themselves in. And that can explain a lot of both why morals vary from culture to culture, and also how and why morals have varied over time.
So, in a sense, morality is flexible and it adapts to the environment.
We can calibrate our moral psychology. Our parameters get set by. It's not clear. We don't know for sure which bits of the environment make a difference, but certainly if you grow up in a kinder world where kindness is reciprocated as opposed to exploited, you'll be more inclined to be kinder in the future.
So, on that note, I'll hand it over to Chris.
Thanks, Raymond. Yeah, firstly, sorry, Oliver, all of the big sort of heavy questions. I know when we were coming up with these questions, we looked into your work, and these are the big questions that we really wanted to ask, and we love having you on because you are one of those people that can answer these. So we just have a couple of last questions, Oliver, that we ask all of our speakers. The first one is, if you had unlimited resources, what particular area of research would you fund to sort of drive forward?
Wow. It's another enormous question. What would I fund? I would fund a Darwin Institute that fostered proper evolutionary adaptationist thinking about human psychology and behavior. There's, as Raymond said, as in any discipline, there's a range of good work and bad. Or to put it another way, evolutionary psychology is relatively well known compared to other fields for a variety of reasons, but there's relatively few people doing it. I don't know. I haven't seen any numbers, but the ratio of people doing it to people arguing about it is very high, low, whichever one it is. So I would like evolutionary approaches to behavior to be properly funded and instituted, so that we can really squeeze the maximum amount of information from this approach, and we can put all its many predictions and hypotheses to the test and find out which are good and which are bad, and make progress towards a better understanding of human nature, including our moral dispositions, of course.
Oh, I think that's a very good answer to a big question. And finally, what does happiness mean to you?
Well, I'm going to quote Harry Hill, the comedian Harry Hill, who said, happiness is a great big pie and everyone having a good time. And that's good enough for me.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else you would like to add about kindness.org or anything else you'd like to direct people towards before we finish?
Well, check out kindness.org. Have a look at our created, we have a snazzy website with lots of ideas of kind things to do. Give them a try. Find out the kindness that's good for you. No one's trying to get anyone to go from, zero to hero. Everyone's in the middle, but just try out the space just next to you. And there's plenty of ideas on kindness.org to see what that looks like. And for my work, check out oliverscottcurry.com.
Perfect. Well, we'll end it there. And thank you so much, Oliver, for joining us today. We really enjoyed your talk. It's very insightful and we learned a lot.
Okay, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much.